Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today, oh boy, we are in store for a pretty nice video. I'm expecting this to be one of my masterpiece videos for you guys today, because we're going to take a deep dive into the Jacob Trouba incident. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you guys absolutely have to have some context for what we're going to talk about today. So, basically, Jacob Trouba laid another big hit the other night against the Chicago Blackhawks at Madison Square Garden. A 5-0 defeat at the hands of the New York Rangers from the Chicago Blackhawks. The Rangers have struggled mightily this season. It has been a rough road for the Rangers, and you need to understand the context of what led up to what we are ultimately going to talk about. So, obviously, Athanasiou was throwing some shade at Jacob Trouba the other day, and I'll talk about the quote here in a second, and we're going to talk about after what led up to this incident. So, basically, Andreas Athanasiou, after the game against Jacob Trouba, he says that Trouba's an $8 million man with 0 goals this season for the Rangers, so he has to figure out how to do something when making that much. He doesn't help his team, so I guess he tries to hurt anyone he can. So we're going to break down exactly what Athanasiou is saying, because there is an argument to be made. And listen, he's not wrong for most of it. It just doesn't sound that great for Trouba. Trouba's an $8 million man with 0 goals. Where's the lie there? Rangers fans have been vocally frustrated with Jacob Trouba in the sense that, yeah, he doesn't produce any goals. That's absolutely correct. And he just looks like he's skating with cement blocks when he's on the ice. I think Rangers fans are annoyed with that. Like, his defensive capabilities aren't even that good, and he's not good offensively because he doesn't score goals. So he's not an offensive threat, and he's a liability defensively. So Rangers fans are like, so why are we paying $8 million again? Right? So you're not going to hear any argument from that first statement from the Rangers fans. So he has to figure out how to do something when making that much. And there are plenty of players around the NHL that find an NHL career without scoring goals. You look around the league, Matt Martin of the Islanders, Ryan Reeves, formerly of the Rangers, now in Minnesota. Similar player, right? These are guys that get paid lots of money in the NHL. Maybe not $8 million per year, but Matt Martin and Reeves aren't in the NHL to score goals or to put up points or be an offensive threat. They're there to be enforcers, fighters, but can also play the game. He doesn't help his team, so I guess he tries to hurt anyone he can. And we've heard that sentiment for a lot of guys in the NHL. That is not anything new. But there is something to be said about the incident. So that is the main quote that everything else we're going to talk about today revolves around. Because Athanasiou's comments here, and you have to remember the context of the situation, this is about a half hour after Athanasiou got destroyed by Trouba on the ice at the Garden. And the context is, and I'm going to play the hit here, there was less than 3 minutes to go in the hockey game. It is 3-0 Chicago, okay? And Trouba lays a hit on Athanasiou. So what you have to look at here, as I'm going to go through play-by-play through the actual incident. So Athanasiou is coming out of the Blackhawks zone with the puck. He's coming up towards center ice at his own blue line, and Trouba comes up and hits Athanasiou. Okay, so I'm going to defend Trouba here for the first 2 minutes here. So Jacob Trouba is trying to get some energy out of his team and this fan base, right? This team looks dead. They look lethargic. There's no fight in them. Well, there's an argument to be made with Trouba laying that hit that he still cares. He still cares enough because he's willing to put himself on the line and he's going with the effort to go and lay that hit. So there's some spark and some energy out of Trouba. It's the first thing. B, Athanasiou has his head down with the puck on his stick. So he is fair game in that regard. And the Rangers announcers said that. Listen, his head is down. He's looking at the puck. He has the puck on his stick. He's fair game. Also, Jacob Trouba has his elbows and arms and shoulders tucked in. Which in that sense, he's not necessarily going out of his way to flop a chicken wing up into Athanasiou's head. It was a clean hit in that regard. Absolutely. Now is the end of that conversation. And now is what is he doing? I want to get this video monetized. What is he doing? Okay. First things first. Positioning. Now, if you look back at the play, Athanasiou is at his own blue line with the puck. What is Jacob Trouba as a defenseman doing at that spot? He's supposed to be back playing basically at center ice as at the red line, or beyond that, even at his own blue line as a defenseman with the play in front of him. Why is he in a position where he is swinging his body up into Athanasiou at the Chicago blue line? There's no reason for that. He shouldn't have even been there, which does give you the intention that he full knew well he was going to be administering a big hit into Athanasiou. He went out of his way and probably took, let me see, he took at least 4, 5, maybe even 6 steps into Athanasiou. And that's where everything developed from. That's the first thing. The second thing is we are looking at a play here where he has his shoulder tucked in. He has his arms tucked in. But he leaps into Athanasiou. We've seen Trouba do this numerous times in his NHL career. This is not the first time Andreas Athanasiou has gotten hit, but it's also not the first time Jacob Trouba has gone out of his way to leap forward into an NHL player to administer a hit, which in that sense is targeting the head. The main point of contact in the hit is Athanasiou's head. Now, again, a little bit pulling back on that. Did it look like a more ugly hit than it actually was? Absolutely. But you know what? Jacob Trouba is 6'3", 210 pounds. Athanasiou is not a big hockey player. So the hit looks worse than it actually was. But Trouba went out of his way to move his body upward into Athanasiou's head, which is the main point of contact, which is his head. Now, with that said, that is breaking down the actual play that administered. And I'm watching now, and a whole scum ensues. Jonathan Toews jumps in on Trouba. Goudreau and Connor Murphy, it looks like, drop the gloves. A complete melee in the final 3 minutes of that hockey game. And I'm not against that. If that's what Trouba was looking to do, bravo. He got what he wanted. He got the Blackhawks to stir up. That's fine. But you also have to look at it in the sense that when does it get to the point where it's a 3-0 game and you kind of just let the clock run out and you just say, we'll get him next time? Is there a fine line there? Now, I understand the Rangers' frustration. This has been, listen, you see the Islanders stuff in the background. You could call me an Islanders homer. This team has been awful this season. And I'm not telling any Rangers fan anything that they don't already know. They have been terrible this season. They had multiple games where they had multiple goal leads where they blew that lead. Multiple times. And you know what? I'm going to go look at the Rangers schedule and we're going to break down where it started, because I believe it was the game before the Islander matchup at home. I want to say it was the Boston Bruins, but you guys are going to fact check me, and I want to make sure I have this down pat. So now we're going to get more to the context of why Trouba may have felt the need to make that hit, because you can make that argument is that he was trying to spark his team and show some type of life to this team, because the Rangers have had no sense of life or urgency really for the last couple of weeks. So let's take a look at their schedule, shall we? So where did this all start? So the first real game where they... Now, for the first couple games, they actually played quite well to start the year. They had a couple of tough games, but this game in particular, okay? They have a 5-2 loss against the Boston Bruins on November 3rd, which was a little over a month ago. Then they have a 3-2 loss against the Red Wings, and mind you, they were up 2-0, the New York Rangers, in that game. They blew that lead in the third period. The next game, they played the New York Islanders up 3-1 at the Garden, lose that game 4-3, giving up 3 unanswered goals in the third period. They have a couple games go by, and they start playing a little bit better. Then they play the Anaheim Ducks, and hand the Anaheim Ducks their first regulation win of this season, which for the Rangers was their 21st game of the season. Apologies for that. 21 games in the season, so I imagine the Ducks are around that time frame. Their 20th game of the season. The first quarter of this season, the Ducks get their first regulation win of this season against the Rangers. That's a tough blow for the Rangers. Then the Rangers come back home 3 days later at the Garden. A 3-0 lead against the Edmonton Oilers at home in the third period. The Oilers score 4 unanswered goals in regulation, mind you, and the Rangers lose that game in regulation 4-3. And to make matters worse, Leon Draisaitl with the game-winning goal with a couple minutes left. As he's coming back to the bench, he sees Trouba going back to the Rangers bench. He punches Trouba's stick out of his hand and flings it in the air as he's going back to his bench to celebrate with the Oilers. Disrespectful by Draisaitl. And Trouba took it. He said, all right, I'm going to accept that. It is what it is. He didn't freak out. Next game. First 5 minutes of the game. Rangers versus Devils. The Devils, one of the hottest teams in the National Hockey League. Number 1 in the NHL standings. And the Devils go down 2-0 in the first couple minutes of this game. And the Devils seem to look dazed until they don't. And the Devils win 5-3 at Madison Square Garden. Rangers fans booing Shesterkin off the ice. Devils fans, road visiting fans, screaming, Igor, Igor. And if that looks familiar for the Rangers fans, those same Igor, Igor chants were after the Islanders had disposed and deposited Igor Shesterkin into the trash can after destroying him once again at MSG. And Shesterkin has only 1 win against the New York Islanders in his NHL career. And a similar note against the New Jersey Devils. A 5-3 loss against the Devils. So now you're seeing things really get frustrating. The Senators come into town. Oh no, they have a back-to-back with the Senators. Trouba and Tkachuk have a fight at center ice at MSG in the second of that back-to-back. That was a pretty entertaining game. The Rangers lose that game at home in overtime. And then the Chicago game, they lose that game 5-2. They somehow score a couple of goals, in that game. And this is where we're at. The Rangers are a team, and it's currently 11-10-5 on the season, and in front of a sold-out Madison Square Garden with over 18,000 fans. After the hit, Trouba gets ejected. He leaves the game. And he slams his helmet against the boards on the way out. Is that, Rangers fans, what you want to see from your captain? I'm asking honestly. Are you looking at it one of two ways? Either he's showing some fight, some spark, and some energy and some urgency that some other players on the Rangers aren't, like, say, a Panarin or a Zibanejad or a Kreider, where there's that lack of urgency? Or are you looking at it as why he should be more stoic and a little bit more just even keel and we're going to kick their butts next time approach? Which one of the fence are you? Because I hate to say it, I'm usually the person that likes to see a little bit of that emotion. But at this point, it is out of control. It is out of control emotion from Trouba. Because it seems like every game, you can make the argument he's getting into fights with Tkachuk. He's dropping the gloves, trying to make something against the Blackhawks in this game. And I'm going to apologize. It was actually in the second period when that hit was administered. So maybe a little bit more, trying to get some energy going into the third period. I do understand that a little bit more from Trouba, but still, it is now the point where we get back to Trouba, where why is this an issue? And Athanasiou has a point here. Now, I'm going to go to a website, scoutingtherefs.com. Multiple instances where Jacob Trouba has either gotten suspended or gotten some kind of fine or penalty for hits. February 20th, 2017, Jets Trouba is set to face a hearing for hit on Senators Mark Stone. So this is back in 2017 before the pandemic, and Mark Stone was still on the Ottawa Senators. We've been hearing about this stuff. Continue. With that hit, Jets Trouba suspended 2 games for the illegal check to Mark Stone's head. January 12th, 2020. Now a member of the New York Rangers. New York Rangers defenseman Jacob Trouba has been fined $5,000 for flashing. That would be interesting. For slashing St. Louis Blues defenseman Vince Dunn. Oh wait, but there's more. And this is one that a lot of people remember. Rangers Jacob Trouba avoids suspension for hit that injured Penguin Sidney Crosby. Rangers defenseman Trouba won't face supplemental discipline for a hit that knocked Pittsburgh Penguins captain Sidney Crosby out of Game 5 of the Stanley Cup playoff series in Round 1 against the New York Rangers. And I can tell you, in that game, I was at Madison Square Garden in the 400s, whatever that Delta Blue seats, wherever that is. That hit changed the momentum and changed that hockey game. It did. Because Sidney Crosby was carrying the Penguins. Absolutely. And it gets to the point where I understand, okay, so you want to knock out their best players, so somebody's got to go and kick Trouba's ass, right? But the problem is, 1-for-1, and I remember when I was in hockey, listen, I was one of the more chippy grinder players that scored a couple goals here and there. But I sometimes would have games where you would go out of your way to take the best player off the ice. And I would have refs come up to me and say, you did the right thing. You took off their best player. I'm like, that's what you want to do. Trouba is not a good player. And I think deep down he knows that. You take Sidney Crosby off the ice, if it means that Trouba and Crosby come off the ice, the net benefit goes to the Rangers because they gain less with Trouba on the ice than Crosby being off of the ice. It's a net benefit for the Rangers. And that's what happened. And not only was it for that Game 5, we didn't see Crosby till I think Game 7 of that series where they ultimately lost, and he looked out of it. He did not look good in that game because he was still hurt. Absolutely. The Penguins definitely rushed him back. If that was a regular season Game 52 in February game, we would not have seen Crosby. But that's what happened. Oh, and do you want me to go back to some of the Islander games? I know Rangers fans don't like this, but I remember vividly a couple of hits against the Islanders that he laid. And I want to see if I could find it. Here we are. February 25th, 2020. Jacob Trouba nails Michael Dal-Cole with a dangerous hit, and Jean-Gabriel Pageau drops the mitts with Trouba afterward. A eerily similar hit to what we just saw with Jacob Trouba and Andreas Athanasiou. You go back to that Michael Dal-Cole hit, it is disgustingly, eerily similar to that hit that we saw against Athanasiou. Eerily similar. And that's why when I saw the replay of this hit, I said, holy shit, I've seen this hit before. And that's what happened. And that's why, again, love me, hate me, I'm not wrong here. You can't argue that. I'm actually looking at the hit right now. Extremely similar. Like, and the difference here is, Jacon didn't even necessarily have the puck yet. And he laid that hit. Now, the puck was in his feet, whatever, so Trouba laid him out. And Trouba did not get a penalty for that. Jacon got concussed from that hit. That's one example. February 25th of 2020. Let's see another one. Let's see how this one went, right? Because we haven't seen this enough times. I'm just going to continue to bury it. Let's go to this one. Let's see here. Matt Martin and Jacob Trouba. Let's see. Here we go. Matt Martin hit on Jacob Trouba, who was slow to get up, leaves the game. And Martin, let's see. So Trouba's going in for the puck, and Martin hits him. And it was kind of a high hit. As an Islander fan, I will agree. That was a high hit. And Trouba gets up wobbly, like he was shook. He got rocked into the boards. And I will say that is suspension worthy. And if I'm not mistaken, Martin got a suspension for that hit. And Martin, he kind of came up and came at Trouba. He got off his feet and kind of administered his head into him. Now, Rangers fans, I am sure, made the argument that Martin should have got suspended for that. And rightfully so. So what's the difference here? Because the main point of contact in that Martin hit was the head. And that's exactly what Trouba did to Athanasiou and Jacon. Oh, you know what? Kevin, that was 2020. Trouba's a different player since February 25th of 2020, and he couldn't have done that this season. Oh, guys, he has done it already this season. So let's go to this one. Seth Jarvis, May 31st of 2022. That's this year. Let's take a look at this one. All right, so here we go. Oh my God. Okay, so here we go again. Now, what's different about this hit, this is awful. So you guys have to do your research, and you guys will hold me to that. I did my research here. Jarvis goes to take a shot. He shoots the puck, and Trouba, after Jarvis has already had the release point, he's already got his stick in the air, like the puck is already well past him. Trouba goes, and this time he has his arm and elbow out, and he hits him. Guys, Trouba is a dirty player. Whether you want to accept that or not, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely unnecessary. I just listed off about 7 different instances between his time at the end of Winnipeg and his time with the New York Rangers that he has laid a bad, dirty hit. And they're not all the same hit, but the classic hit is where the guy's coming out of the puck with his own blue line, head down, and for some reason Trouba's at the defending team's blue line, not his own blue line, as a defenseman. Why is he there? That's part of the conversation. And he goes out of his way, yes, shoulder tucked in, arms tucked in, but he purposely goes out of his way to push his momentum upward into the head area, which is what the NHL is trying to avoid in today's NHL. And listen, I'm a fan of hitting in the NHL. It is a necessary evil in hockey. Absolutely. But when you have a guy that's going out of his way, jumping into a player that is about 3 or 4, if not more, inches shorter than you, I'm pretty sure Athanasiou is either listed as 5'10 or 5'11, and definitely well under 200 pounds. With the fact that Trouba's leaping into him, there's no reason for that. There's none. And you know what? Should Trouba get suspended? One day Trouba is gonna get it. And whether that's somebody dropping him on the ice, or he gets taken out of the NHL for whatever reason. I'm not saying, oh, he's going to be banned from the NHL for a hit. I'm not saying that. Worse. He clears waivers and goes to Hartford for the rest of his career and gets bussed around. How far are we from that? Because I don't think Rangers management or the coaching staff or even the players for that matter, it starts to become a distraction. And when you have your captain that is, again, he's wearing the C for the New York Rangers, throwing his helmet, is he in middle school? That doesn't sound like a captain that can face adversity. And you could say, whatever, if you were in the same position, what would you do? Okay. But you know what? The Rangers went out of their way to pick Jacob Trouba. They could have picked Panarin. They could have picked Kreider. And you know what? In that sense, I will agree that they made the right choice in that sense. At least Trouba's showing fight. Because we're not seeing it from Zibanejad or Kreider or Panarin. And Kreider had a very good season last year. But you know what? Larry Brooks came out with a tweet a couple weeks ago. I know Rangers fans have their things with Larry Brooks. I agree. He definitely likes to stir the pot. But Larry Brooks, this is a tweet from Brooksy. Season has devolved into a joyless exercise for the New York Rangers. Essentially, every one of them, including the coach, seems defeated. There's no spark, there's no life, there's no confidence, there's no belief. And you know what? I wonder if Trouba saw that and said to himself, yeah, you know what? Screw that guy. I'm going to show heart. I'm going to show fight. And he did. Because you know what? He's willing to drop the gloves with Tkachuk. He's willing to lay dirty hits and put himself into jeopardy of potentially getting suspended or fined or whatever. But you have to channel that energy to making the team better. And I think there's a lack of buy-in from this team at Trouba. And maybe that's not even true, but you could have thrown any guy in there as the captain. It wouldn't have mattered. I think it is a culture issue for the Rangers. And it devolves to way more than just Trouba. I'm talking about Trouba today, but listen, word on the street from pretty close people inside, I can't really speculate on that. I can't talk about these people, but they're very high up in where they hang around with certain Rangers people, and they think Gallant is very much on the hot seat and could be gone by potentially the time I even upload this video. And it gets worse than that. And, I think that the pullback trading Reeves, I think that kind of hurts. I know he's been scratched a lot and stuff like that, but I think he was a good locker room guy for the Rangers. As much as I hated him as an Islander fan, Reeves was a good glue guy in that Rangers locker room, and I think that was a net loss for them. Because what are those 3rd and 4th round picks doing for the Rangers right now that Reeves couldn't do? Like, come on, really? And now it's the Trouba show, and it sounds like this team just has no lack of. There's just a huge lack and a black hole of leadership. There's just none of it. So you're also seeing the devolvement of career years from Shesterkin and Kreider last year. You're seeing the lack of development from some of your highly regarded players like Kakko or Lafreniere. That's very concerning. And hold on, before we get further, do I need to go over some of the players that were, again, call it, it's the New York market and they want to play there, and that's fair. It's fair game. The NHL didn't discipline the Rangers for cheating and stuff like that because they didn't cheat, but these guys they fell into the Rangers' lap, and they should be successful because these players fell into their lap, except they haven't. Let me go through the list. The first 2 draft picks. What were the chances of the Rangers getting that lottery pick for first overall for Lafreniere? Do you guys remember the context, right? It was a pick that was, I think it was the 16th best odds to get the first overall pick And there was 10 teams that could have gotten that pick because they would have had to have lost in the wild card series in 2020 in the playoff bubble. You guys remember 2020 with the bubble situation? You would have had to lose that first round in the wild card, and you would have had to win the lottery in terms of getting that pick. Oh yeah, and that pick also happened to be first overall. And the Rangers won both of that. Also on the heels of winning the second overall pick in 2019 where they selected Kakko. So they selected Kakko and Lafreniere in what some would say sort of looks a little bit rigged for the Rangers to get those draft picks. In the first 2 years that they tank, they just so happen to get the first and second overall pick in the most odd sense. Interesting. Now again, you could tinfoil hat, whatever. There's been no evidence that they cheated, so I can't say that for certain, statistically. But nonetheless, they were still given those players. Nonetheless, whether it was cheated or fair, they were still given those players, okay? Then, Panarin would not sign anywhere else but New York. That's why Chicago traded him to Columbus. That's why Columbus lost him in free agency, because he wanted to go nowhere else but the New York Rangers and play in the Big Apple. Adam Fox, drafted by the Calgary Flames, traded to the Carolina Hurricanes. They weren't able to get anything done for him. He ends up signing with the Rangers. So 2 really good hockey players gifted to the Rangers because they would not play anywhere else. Basically NBA players at that point. Basically. Okay? Jimmy Vesey, highly regarded college kid, decides not to sign his entry-level contract with Buffalo. Ends up going to the Rangers. Now that didn't end up working out so well, but still. Highly regarded player at the time. So the only real things the Rangers actually hit on were Zibanejad in the 1-for-1 trade for Brassard. Fair credit there. They definitely did a good job with that trade. Fair. And Shesterkin, and drafting Igor Shesterkin in the 3rd or 4th round. Really good scouting team. So I'm going to give credit where it's due where they did that, but they also were gifted 5 incredibly good hockey players at their time. Vesey, Panarin, Fox, Kakko, and Lafreniere. So the lack of development in Kakko and Lafreniere is not on the NHL. That's for the Rangers, A, drafting those players and not developing them. So now the crippling effects of whatever era you want to call it, whether that's the new Chris Drury, Gerard Gallant system, or is this still the remnants of what we're seeing from the David Quinn, who's the GM right now in Montreal? Not the GM, the other guy that was there. I'm forgetting his name. Is it Davidson? I think it's Davidson. What we're still seeing the fallout from that, or is this the new regime and all of a sudden we're starting to see their impact on the team not looking so good? Guys, I don't know what the Rangers are going to do, but this is going to be interesting because do you just sell off rentals at the deadline and say, listen, we'll be back next year? Do you take the second option, which is completely tank and rebuild because the locker room is just in shambles? That's an option too. Or the third option, which is you buy. And let's say you go out and try and get a Bo Horvat or a Brock Besser in Vancouver and try to double down and say, listen, we like our core and we're going to build onto it at whatever cost necessary. Or they go out and get a Patrick Kane next summer and double down on what they have. Honestly, I think the Rangers are going to do the third here. I think they're going to double down. They're going to say, listen, this is from the old regime. This is the lasting effects from that old regime. And we're going to fix this. And we're going to continue to build on what we already have. And that means we could see a Patrick Kane come to the Garden. A generational talent, number 88. He played there the other night. But is he going to be incentivized to play there if he's seeing the captain of the team he's going to throwing his helmet on the ice, throwing it into the boards, the home team booing their starting goaltender, Shesterkin, your team that sucks kicking their ass on the road in their home turf at the Garden? Do you want to play there next year and potentially the next 8 years moving forward, or 7, depending on if he signs there or gets traded there? just interesting food for thought. And it's something that I think Rangers fans have to the reality is, what are they going to do next? And I do think they will double down, but let me know what you guys think down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.